Hey everybody, it's Eric from EPautos.com, your libertarian car guy. Some interesting news this morning. Looks like, well, if you've been following the story, the saga of the Slate EV, Slate is Jeff Bezos' EV operation. And they were talking up a couple of months ago, well, back in, I guess, April, that they were going to offer this very affordable, very basic little electric pickup truck that could be converted into an SUV, and it was going to start, quote unquote, under $20,000. Now, at the time they made that announcement, I didn't buy it, just like I didn't buy Safe and Effective. I think I'm gifted with common sense. Anyhow, looks like exactly that has turned out to be the case. They have scrubbed the under 20,000 thing from the website, and ostensibly it's because Trump has gotten rid of the federal $7,500 tax kickback, which they factored into their pricing, which is a little greasy in a sense that it's not, they themselves are still selling the vehicle for whatever the cost is, and whether you're eligible or not to get this $7,500 off really doesn't touch on what they're selling it for. It's just being discounted by the federal government indirectly. Anyhow, so now they're talking about it's going to be closer to $30,000, and I think it's going to be a lot more than that. I don't see how any manufacturer can produce a device for sale in this country, and I like to call EVs devices because that's what they are, for significantly less than that. And I submitted for your approval as something to kind of buttress my point. The least expensive EV that's available right now is the Nissan Leaf, and curiously enough, the Nissan Leaf is almost exactly the same overall length, the same size essentially as the Slate, at least according to the preliminary specs. And the Leaf actually weighs a little bit less, has a range of 149 miles with its best case, with its basic battery, and the thing costs just shy, or stickers for just shy of 29,000 or 28,000 and something. Anyway, the point is it costs its stickers for nearly 30. So how in the world would Slate be able to produce a similar vehicle, and they tout the range of the thing as being about 150 miles with the standard battery, for significantly less than that? The battery is the main cost in an EV, and if Nissan, which is a major vehicle manufacturer, can't figure out a way to cut down the cost of the battery such that they could significantly lower the MSRP of the Leaf, I just don't see how Nissan could possibly do that. Slate, sorry, too much or not enough coffee, could possibly do that. Doesn't make sense. I think what's going to end up happening, if the thing ever sees the light of production, is that it will start around $30,000 with the base battery, and probably around $34,000, $35,000 with the optional, which means it won't be affordable. And I think the thing that's really going to kill them is that this thing is a two-seater. So, essentially it's marketed toward young single people. Well, young single people haven't got $30,000 to spend on a little vehicle like that. It's not affordable. What they need is something like the old Geo Tracker. Do you remember that? Geo, which used to be sold under the Chevy label, used to sell these little vehicles like the Metro and the Tracker, which was a little four-wheel drive thing with a soft top. Really cool. They were super inexpensive. They were fun. They were practical, and they were sub $15,000. And some people will say, "Oh, that could never be done today," and that's nonsense. I've written multiple times about the Toyota Hilux Champ, which is available right now, just not here, which is a small pickup with drop-down bed walls that can be configured into a food truck, an SUV, just about anything you'd like. And they sell that thing with a base price of $13,000 in other countries. So it absolutely can be done. The thing is, the way the regulatory regime is in this country, it's simply not feasible for any manufacturer to build a vehicle like that and sell it. They can't do it. So instead, we're getting these, it's vicious and it's silly, this whole idea of these $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 EVs. What they're doing is kicking the ladder out from under young people who can't afford those things, making it so that pretty much only boomers and aging Gen X types like me can still afford a car. And I hate that. I think it sucks. One of the things I would like to see, if we could have these sub 15K vehicles again, new, would be that there would be this tremendous inventory of extremely affordable used vehicles once those things became second-hand vehicles. If you have a $13,000 Hilux, the original purchaser drives it for 4 or 5 years or whatever, and then gets rid of it, and at that point the thing probably would sell for $6,000, $7,000, something like that. Something that a teenager could get, conceivably. Certainly somebody in 2021 with their first job could absolutely afford to get that. They can't afford a $30,000 vehicle. One final thing too, that it's just obnoxious, and it's never discussed, and that's why it's obnoxious, with regard to the EV tax credit, which of course doesn't exist now that Trump has gotten rid of it. But when it did exist, they would imply that anybody who wanted to get an EV could avail themselves of this thing and get $7,500 back from the federal government. The problem is you had to earn enough income and pay enough in federal taxes to qualify. If you didn't, no refund for you. So, they were kind of just wheedling people with that again. It's just this whole common thread of EV-ness is about wheedling, chipping, and grifting, really, at the end of the day. It's a fundamentally dishonest thing. And that's why I try to whack that piñata as often as I can. Anyway, more about this over at EPautos.com, the web's best libertarian gearhead site. Thanks as always for listening, and we'll have more for you again soon.